King Castling. Castling is a special chess move involving the king and one rook. The king moves 2 squares toward the rook, and the rook jumps over the king to the adjacent square. It's a superpower for both the king and the rook. With some exceptions, you can't castle into check, out of check, and you can't expose the rook to attacks. Did you know where this special move comes from? In early chess around the 14th to 15th century, the king could move 2 or 3 squares on its first move, once per game, sometimes even diagonally or like the knight, to offer the king greater safety in the opening. With this ability, it was very hard to trap and checkmate the king. You couldn't deliver checkmate with even 2 rooks. Later, it evolved into castling. Both have the same purpose, to maximize the safety of the king. There are 2 more superpowers that the king possesses. Watch till the end to see them. Knight, Queen Hunter. The knight moves in an L shape, 2 squares in one direction, then 1 square perpendicular. It's the only piece that can jump over others, and it's also the only piece that can attack the queen without exposing itself to attack, making it the perfect queen hunter. The knight can attack the queen without getting attacked by her. This superpower enables the knight to fork the queen, smother the king, and make moves that other pieces can't make. Pawn, first jump. The pawn has many superpowers. First jump is one of them. The pawn is allowed to move 2 squares forward on its first move. Why? In earlier forms of chess, pawns could only move 1 square at a time, making the game boring at the beginning. The introduction of the 2-square first move for pawns was a deliberate change to accelerate the pace of games. This ability was introduced historically to make games faster and to increase tactical possibilities. The rule also serves to open up lines for the king's bishop and the queen to develop, further contributing to the dynamic nature of the game. This superpower enables the pawn not only to speed up the game, but also to win the race against the king. You see, a pawn would always lose in a race against the enemy king, but with its 2-square superpower, the pawn will be 1 step faster than the king, completely changing its fate. Bishop loyal. The bishop moves any number of squares diagonally on the same color it starts on, making it loyal to its starting color square. Just kidding. Well, that's not the case. In endgames, most of the time, major pieces are going to be traded, which are the queen and the rook, and we end up with pawns and minor pieces like the bishop and knight. But the bishop is loyal when it comes to defending and attacking, meaning it can defend the same square even if it moves. The idea is that it can move to another square and still defend the piece. Look at this position. The bishop is defending the pawn. Black can play king to d5, attacking the bishop. In this situation, the bishop can move away and still defend the pawn, while the knight will betray you in this kind of situation. Knight, unpredictable. If you showed this position to someone who doesn't play chess, they would confidently say that black is absolutely winning just by seeing the material count. But this is actually made in 3 for white. A lot of guys can get it. Knight to h6 check, king to h8 is forced. Then after the sacrifice of the queen on g8, black is forced to capture it with the rook, and knight to f7 would be just checkmate. In this position, black is up 30 points in material, but all of black's resources can't do anything against the ideally placed knight. When people say the knight in chess is unpredictable, they mean it's unlike any other piece. It can jump over others and attack from unexpected angles, making its threats hard to anticipate or defend against. Queen, win always. If you end up with only a knight or a bishop, the game ends in a draw because these minor pieces alone can't deliver checkmate. But if you end up with a rook, you can win against the king easily. However, if your opponent has a bishop or knight, that would just be a draw with correct play. You can't force black to the edge of the board or capture the minor piece without sacrificing your own. Now let's see the queen. If you end up with 1 queen, you can easily win the game, and no piece can stop you from doing so. This means your opponent may have a knight, a bishop, or even a rook, but you can still win. This shows the queen is way more powerful than those pieces, perfect for defending and attacking scenarios. Queen, 27 squares simultaneously. The queen can move any number of squares in any direction, horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, making it extremely versatile and dominant in both attack and defense. It can control 27 squares if you place it right. The entire board has 64 squares, and 42% of it can be occupied by a single queen. It's safe to say the queen is the perfect piece to navigate around the board with no limit. King, uncapturable. In standard chess, you can't capture the king because the game rules make checkmate the end condition. But checkmate has a different meaning than you think. Historically, the term comes from the Persian phrase shahmat, meaning the king is helpless. This has deep meaning. In the game of chess, the king is you, the ruler, the one who can give orders, the one who doesn't obey anything. You can lose your army, precious troops, or even your wife. Then what will happen? Life will continue. Just like that. The game will go on until the king is about to be captured, and at the moment the king's capture is inevitable, something way deeper happens. That is death. What will happen after death? You don't know. It's like an unknown mystery. That is the logic behind it, and no one knows what would happen after you capture the king in chess, making that the end. Rook Castling. To castle, you need two pieces, the rook and the king. The rook also possesses this superpower. It's the only move in chess involving two pieces moving at once, used to protect the king and connect the rooks. Early chess allowed players to move the king 2 squares on its first move for safety, which eventually evolved into the modern castling rule, combining defense and development in one strategic motion. If you know another superpower for the rook, please let me know in the comment section. Pawn, En Passant. En Passant is a special pawn capture in chess. It occurs when a pawn moves 2 squares forward from its starting position, landing beside an opponent's pawn, allowing the opponent to capture it as if it had moved 1 square. The special pawn move En Passant exists because of rule changes that led to the codification of the modern rules of chess. Originally, a pawn could only move 1 square forward, even on its first move. This meant that pawns on the 5th rank would always have an opportunity to capture adjacent pawns moved forward by the opponent. However, since the rules of chess were changed to allow each pawn to move 2 squares on its first move, the En Passant rule preserves this capturing opportunity. It is also the only move that captures an opponent's pawn without moving onto the square. Pawn promotion. When a pawn reaches the opponent's back rank, the player can exchange the pawn for a more powerful piece, typically a queen. This strategic move can significantly alter the game's dynamics, enhancing the player's attacking potential and increasing chances of checkmate. Promotion is a crucial aspect of pawn play, often influencing the outcome of the match in favor of the promoting player. If a pawn, upon reaching the opponent's back rank, is promoted to a piece other than a queen, it is called under promotion, typically to a knight, rook, or, in rare cases, a bishop. Since the other pieces are less powerful than the queen, it gets the name under. Look at this insane position. If we promote to a queen, black will just push the pawn to d3, and no matter what move we play, stalemate is inevitable because black has no legal moves left. But if we under-promote to a knight when black pushes to d3, we can play knight to b6, sacrificing the knight. Black has no choice except to take it. Then we push. Black pushes. Again, we don't promote to a queen. The same thing will happen. Instead, we under-promote to a knight with the same idea to sacrifice it on d6. Then we repeat basically the same thing. After g7 and f5, we promote to a queen and deliver checkmate on the next move. Or if you don't care about your opponent's aura, you can just under-promote to a knight, delivering checkmate immediately. You see, different pieces have different roles in chess. Even one's own weakness can be advantageous. You might think a rook is weaker than a queen, and by that assumption, you might promote to a queen in this position, but that is a big blunder. Black can't move, resulting in stalemate and a draw. But if we under-promote to a rook, that way black can make a move, and soon we will deliver checkmate with the rook. In most cases, the purpose of under-promotion is to avoid stalemate and gain some tactical advantage. That is why players under-promote. A pawn possesses this superpower, giving the promoter 4 options to choose from and select the best. King, infinite value. The pawn has 1 point in value, 3 for the bishop and knight, 5 for rooks, and 9 for the queen, but the king has no point value. This translates into how much is your value? Infinity, right? Just like that, the king's value is the same. I can prove this in practice. For example, if we have infinite queens on the 3rd rank and our opponent also has infinite queens on the d-file, our opponent might give us check. But the game forces us to block the checks with the queens until we get away from them. That means the checks would continue forever and we are forced to sacrifice an infinite amount of queens. This is the God figure superpower. Watching till the end and leaving without liking is like being ungrateful, and that will reduce your satisfaction. This 9-minute video took 52 hours to make, and you just finished it in only 9 minutes. Please, all of that effort was sacrificed to help you know and entertain you for free.